Hello and welcome to Mental Health Monday. We are so happy to be back with you. We missed you guys the last 2 weeks, and so we are thrilled to be back here with you, taking your questions this evening on marriage. So I hope you've brought your questions, but also please share this link on your social media right at this time. Let your friends and family know that this is marriage advice by two mental health professionals, and so they should tune in because we believe that they will be blessed and can get possibly their questions answered this evening. So I want to say welcome to you, but welcome to my co-host, Dr. Ricardo White. We are just thankful to be back together here on this platform doing this again. It is always such a blessing.
Indeed, indeed. Yeah, I understand your weekend was pretty eventful.
Pretty eventful. Just was what it was eventful and it was a blessing. It just wasn't restful. So that's
Yeah.
but that it was a good weekend, and we were in Toronto, Canada, doing some ministry work with Friday night with some young people, and on Sabbath with young adults and other churches, and so in that area, and it was cold and it was snowing and it was icy, and I was like, wow. I came from Alabama and it was 80 degrees the day we left, and then we went to cold, snowy Toronto, Canada. So it was cold. But I heard but you got snow too, and you're in California.
Got snow,
And
thick
you're in
flakes.
Southern California, like real
Southern
snow.
California. Yeah,
I
yeah.
saw it, the news came over on my phone, and I was like, what? Southern California is snowing? I was like, I'm in Toronto, Canada, and it's snowing.
It was
Yeah.
crazy. It was crazy. It
I'm
was
sure. And I'm sure everything's shut down too, because I know Californians don't know how to drive in the snow. Like in Toronto, people were just like, "Oh, this is no big deal." I'm like, "You're not afraid of black ice?" And they're just like, "No, we have the proper tires." But I know in California they were
we,
scared.
we were out taking photographs and sending it back east to family, and they were all confused, like, "Where are you?"
Southern, it never rains in Southern California. It does, and it also snows. So don't believe that song.
Yeah, yeah, but
So
it's crazy.
yes. So
Yeah,
again,
we are.
welcome to our viewing audience. Please put in the chat where you're watching from. When I look, South Africa.
Yeah.
Hi to Fanika in South Africa. Tell me what time it is in South Africa right now. Must be like in the either very, very early in the morning. I would assume. Very, very early in the morning.
Movie Remy. That's a lovely
Yeah.
name.
Yes. Muvarimi. I hope we're
So
saying it
somebody,
right.
Alabama. Yeah, that's awesome. South Carolina. Love it,
All
Christy. Good.
right. Yes. All right.
Texas.
Clint, always Clint from Longview, Texas. I know where you
Hey,
live,
Clint.
Clint, because yes. And Sarah's
Watching
watching
from
from Powell,
Powell,
Alabama.
Alabama. Hey, Sarah. Of course, sis loves you first time people. I love you return people. All right.
I do. I love, but since you said that, because I know the return people, because the names are familiar. So we have Canada,
Trinidad.
Trinidad, New Orleans. Hey,
And it's
welcome.
and it's what? It sounds like it's 3 o'clock in the morning for
In South
Fanika
Africa?
in South Africa.
Or okay.
Wow.
Yeah, I thought it was like, yes. Hi, Crystal from Spokane. If this
And
is your first time watching Mental Health Monday, can you put a 1 in the
one
chat?
in the
And
chat.
we
One in the
we will
chat.
give you a virtual, like, hand wave and
Shout
welcome
out.
and even a virtual hug.
Absolutely. Yeah, but shout out to our returns though. That's
Yes,
awesome. I
it
mean,
is
because what is
cool. We have
community without people coming back? So shout
yes,
out to you as well.
we have regulars, which is a blessing, which is a
Yeah.
blessing.
Hey Laura,
Okay,
we get a
Laura
one.
Myers. And you spell it like it's my husband's name that I've had for 25 years, but you spell it like like they spell it.
I
Welcome, Laura Myers. Laura, where are you watching from?
yeah, I thought that was your family there, Tante.
No, if it's family, I don't know. I mean, his family is huge, huge Jamaican family.
We
I'm
got
just
Danny from Santa Barbara, California. Man,
yeah, yeah. Oh, Santa Barbara.
yeah, that's God's
That's like
country.
yeah. My mom lives just an hour from there. Well, Santa Maria. I was born in Napomo, California, which is about an hour, a little bit over an hour from Santa Barbara. But back to Laura. Laura, yeah, you
Collegedale,
spell it
Tennessee.
the right way.
Collegedale. Okay, so we
Yes.
That's where Southern is, isn't it? Southern in
Oh,
Collegedale.
Laura, you're in Collegedale. Well, Laura, you live close. We're not too far. We're not too far. We're in Huntsville. It's Collegedale is not too far away. Well, welcome, Laura. So happy that you are here for the very first time. Um,
We
pray
got
that.
New Baltimore, Michigan.
All right. Um,
Okay,
I
Belize.
don't, yes, I don't want to say the name right. Margath. Margath. This is her first time as well. So
Looks like you're
welcome.
related. You're related to the to Laura. You guys are like cousins, apparently.
Really? Is that what
Yeah,
it
that's
says?
what she said.
Are
That's
you
what she
really?
said. Well, it says cousins. I mean,
She is saying
long
cousins. It's
lost.
cousins I don't know, but maybe so.
Maybe so. You said
Maybe
it's a big
so.
family.
Yeah, it is a big family. It's very possible. Very possible. Very, very possible. So yeah. Um, yes.
Well,
Well,
we're here
nice
this
to
week.
meet you, cousin.
Yeah, we're here this week talking about marriage and fielding your marriage-related questions.
Hmm.
And yeah, you guys can start putting those in the chat. Isn't that right, Sister Atante?
Yes, please. You can put your questions. So sorry that we've not, I mean, we're sorry, but because we said next week we'll continue the questions and then we took a 2 week gap. But please put if you remember your questions from last time and they didn't get answered, please put that. New questions. We welcome new questions on marriage. I'm just saying who we are because we do have some first timers. So I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. Dr. Ricardo White is a
Psychiatry.
psychiatrist.
Yeah,
Yes, I almost said
with
psychologist. It
subspecialty
almost
with
yeah,
subspecialty training in addictions.
yes,
So yeah, definitely area and passion of mine. Absolutely.
yes, and we are here to answer your questions. Well, while people are warming up for that, something I actually said this weekend to the students because I was doing exactly this on Friday night. It was like a freestyle question and answer to like 16, 17, and 18-year-olds, right? So I had no idea what was going to come. But got a lot of relationship questions and things like that. But as a marriage, I'm always talking to the couples that I see, and of course they come in with communication concerns. They're always saying, oh, our communication needs to be better, and we cover those things. And then as I share that, really the principles that I share with my couples about marriage, those principles are really can be used in any relationship when you're talking about communication. um we always talk about, we've talked about Gottman here and how he talks about a easy startup versus a hard startup, so that the person's defense mechanisms don't go uh, high so that they can hear what you're saying and they can really listen and understand and not just be defensive. That's really in any relationship with any person that you're wanting to communicate, and maybe the topic is a little hard topic, but you're wanting to, you have to tell them something. You want to communicate that in a way so that they, against their defense mechanisms, that wall, I call it, doesn't go up right away, but they actually will allow you to speak, and they can listen and hear your heart and then respond in the way that hopefully you want them to respond, which is always with kindness and respect. So, just saying that communication is huge in marriages. And those principles that you learn on how to properly communicate, you can do that with in any relationship.
But that's a great tip that um, in a military sense, you hear about what are called scouts, and the whole the thing that scouts do is they get reconnaissance. And what's interesting is they often are operating behind enemy lines.
Right.
So discovery would often be lethal. And so they are in usually very 2, maybe 4-man teams, but very small teams. And they have to not trigger defenses in order to be effective. And that's a nice mindset to have when you're communicating, that you not trigger defenses, because it makes it a lot harder to communicate, as opposed to if you can have the communication with the person without the defenses, things actually kind of tend to move further along, as opposed to when you're blocked, you're not taking anything in, and you really are responding to things that the person might not have even said, but the person's triggered. So now you're all uphill. I see Christy has gotten us our first question.
Right. Some parents and grandparents believe in picking spouses for their children and grandchildren. Is that wrong? It's
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that it's morally wrong, but it's definitely God should be the one choosing the spouse for us. And there are cultures and countries where that is what they do. But yeah, here in America, that would never work. That just wouldn't
Well,
work.
well, what's interesting about it is some parents and grandparents believe in picking spouse for their children and grandchildren. Is that wrong? What's interesting is to what degree have the parents and grandparents involved the children and the grandchildren? Um, like things occur on a spectrum. So if the parents and grandparents have really involved the kids and the kids are on board with it, it might work. But
It,
if
yeah, if they're
if
down with it, it's just
if they're
not.
down, but if they just show up and hey, here's your spouse, that probably would be a real challenge in an American context where
Yeah.
arranged marriage is not something that we see in the mainstream at all. um
No, and I just would, yeah, just to piggyback on that a little bit, like, no, it's not in the mainstream. And then, um, you know, the couple getting to know each other. I mean, that part. I mean, I guess if you let them choose and then you take time to get to know each other and you say, "Hey, this was a good choice. Yeah, let's move forward." Maybe. It's not traditional. I don't know how many people would be open to that. I know my children would be absolutely not open to that.
well, here's one of the things that happens when you're a parent. Like,
Mhm.
you get your turn at bat, you make your decisions, you go to college, you choose your spouse, you choose your profession. And what's interesting is you gain a perspective where you're like, had I to do it again, I would do it
Right.
this way.
Right.
And a lot of times as parents, we feel burdened now that we want to share with this child, hey, there are some pitfalls you can avoid. And I think
Mhm. Oh, for sure.
what we can easily forget is it's their turn at bat.
Right.
It's their turn at bat.
They have to
It's their
figure it
turn
out.
to decide what they're going to swing at, what they're not going to swing at, what they're going to let pass by. And this issue of um, what's it called? Free will. It's a
Mhm.
sacred thing. It is sacred. It is so significant that God respects our free will because
Right.
he recognizes it's our turn at bat. So as parents, it can be a temptation to want to take the child's turn for them and say, no, you need to do
Mhm.
it this way, you need to do it that way, and not acknowledge,
Yeah.
no, there's a point at which once you've helped them to adulthood, um, it's their turn at bat. Now,
Right.
obviously you can provide support and guidance, but here's the key. Here's the key. When they were kids, there was a degree to which you could literally rely on force. If you needed to pick a
Mhm.
child up and say, you need to not go there, you could literally pick them up and take them
Right.
somewhere else. Well,
Right.
as the relationship matures, things become more influence based so that it's
Mhm.
not force anymore, it's influence. They will respond to you if you have influence. And
Mhm.
that tends to be what takes over for the rest of life. Have
Right.
you developed influence? Do they want your input
Mhm.
on who they should choose as a romantic partner? Do they even want it? Do you have
Mhm.
influence? Have you shown
Mhm.
yourself to be wise, dependable, and embody an outcome that they're actually aspiring to? Or
Right.
are they saying, I don't want anything like what you've done?
I have
So,
just yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, we have 3 daughters and well, one daughter's already married, so but before, she got married and this is and we have one son. So I always, I'd give the girls counsel and our son as well, but, as far as generally who, um, the type of characteristics you're looking for in a spouse, but an exact s I mean, specific person, No. I mean, I've met young men that I'm like, man, this seems like a great young man. I sure wish my daughter, the ones that are single still would meet this young man, but even though may think he's great and he is probably great, that doesn't mean they're going to connect or click or, find that connection. So
Yeah.
God is in the setting up business. So our children and
We
everyone who
got
wants to
some.
get married should submit
Well,
to his will.
I think we need to give some deference to this question,
Okay.
given the person asking it.
Okay.
Okay, so
Our
if you're in
producer.
if you're in passionate fellowship, don't you love that euphemism for fighting like cats and dogs?
With
If
your
you're in
spouse.
passionate fellowship with your spouse and they're heated and catastrophizing, overreacting, how can you bring them back to planet Earth before shutting down / go silent at asking for a friend? Of course you are, Amra. Of course you are.
I had a supervisor once who explained something like this. And, she said, once we're so heated, and our heart rate goes up, to a certain level. She said, when your heart rate's way up here, I don't know if you can see that in the camera, like way up here, you're in
You
stupid
see.
land now. So she
Ah,
called it stupid land. Stupid land is where you say stupid things, do stupid things, and it's just not so when both are up here, or if even one is up here, you need to wait like at least 20 minutes to let the heart rate come back down. And you're still not happy, the situation isn't solved, but you're in a place now where you can actually tap into your prefrontal cortex and actually sound like a mature adult when you're talking. And it may 20 minutes still may not even be long enough. I'll tell couples, look, 20 minutes is where your heart rate naturally can come down to a healthier level where you're thinking more wisely about what you say or what you do. But some people may need a few hours. I just say, don't let, and this is the biblical principle, don't let the sun set on your wrath. So you need to talk about it before you go to bed at night. But definitely give it, the least is 20 minutes, longest is before you go to bed. That's the
okay.
counsel.
No, good, definitely good counsel. Amara, we're going to dwell on this a little bit because everybody gets into arguments. Everybody gets into
Right.
arguments. So I want to give you the juiciest tip that I have, that I have in an argument. We've all gotten to arguments, right? Where
Yep.
you are so frustrated, you are so tired, you want to end the argument, but have you tried to end it and it escalated even more?
Right.
Because now the person's feeling, dismissed. So how do you end an argument and
You be
actually have
quiet.
the person
You be quiet.
and actually have the person feel valued? Okay?
Okay.
I'm going to go
Maybe
through the
not be
next
quiet.
few steps that will help you that will help you not only end it but have the person feel valued. Because if you
Mhm.
just say I'm going to be quiet, I'm not going to be responding anymore, the partner can feel shut down.
It's true. You're right. And I do tell people that too. If you are going to put like at least a 20-minute pause on it or a couple of hours or whatever, communicate that and don't yell and scream. I mean,
Exactly.
if you're in stupid
Exactly.
land, it's going to be hard not to yell or scream, but you communicate
Exactly.
that and say, I'm not just walking away. I am walking away, but only so that we can both calm down and then come back to have a reasonable conversation without being so angry. So
You you
communication
you,
is everything.
you stole my thunder.
Okay,
You
sorry. Go
stole,
ahead.
you stole,
Sorry.
no, but that was good. That was good. That was good. She cut right to
Mhm.
the chase. But no, so here it is. So step one, I want you to ask this question. Okay. You guys are arguing, you're ticked off, you're frustrated, you're not getting anywhere. I want you to stop and ask this question. Get your notebooks out, write this down. What are you hearing me say?
Mhm.
Okay. Now we're gonna stop the argument, and we're gonna go through this process. This is how to stop an argument. What
Right.
are you hearing me say? Okay, and you listen to them. And here I have a warning for you: don't get triggered by what they say, because guess
Right.
what? You're gonna see that that's not what I said. So don't
Right.
don't don't respond with rage, and don't let that trigger you even more. You say, okay, what I was actually saying was this. Okay.
Mhm,
And see if
mhm,
now what are you hearing me say? Okay.
mhm,
And then you can then say, now here's what I'm hearing you say. Okay. Here's what I'm hearing you say. So, and of course, they're going to respond to you. But what you're
mhm,
doing now is you're now starting to move towards each other. So then
mhm,
your next step is, as you continue to try to move together, you say, you know what? This bud's for you, Amara. Here's what I can take responsibility for. Correction, I mean Amara's friend. I apologize, your friend. Here's what I can take responsibility for, because it can often take two to tango, and there's often something you're bringing to the conflict. So here's what I can take responsibility for, right? Then is there anything you can take responsibility for? All right. Now, by
mm,
this point, the person may very well say, there's nothing I can take responsibility for. And you're going to feel your heart going up again. Okay. Because they
mhm,
can't take responsibility for
mhm.
anything. Best case scenario, they're like, here's what I can take responsibility for. Again, you're moving towards each other. Worst
Yeah.
case scenario, there's nothing I can take responsibility for. This is all on you. Okay. So that's where now you say to them, look, we've been arguing for a while, and I value you. I care
Mhm,
about you. I can't hear you right now. So what I'd
mhm,
like to do is I want us to take a moment. I got to get something to eat, or I need a shower, or I need to go take a walk. For my wife, we agree that in arguments we don't leave the home. Okay?
right.
We agreed we're not going to leave the home in anger and rage. So but
Mhm,
we say I'm going to be gone for this prescribed time. Now here is the key.
mhm,
You promise the prescribed time, you come back after that prescribed time. You're building trust with your partner, or you're shredding trust, because if you come back at another argument, when you say you'll be back, then you come back.
mhm,
But if you don't come back, then the partner will not have the confidence that you'll actually come back. Okay?
mhm, mhm.
So it is very critical that what you do is, you promise to be back a certain time, and you come back, and you come back now refreshed. You've eaten, you've rested, you've given yourself a chance to physiologically calm down. Give yourself a good hour is always a good idea. Um,
Mhm.
but obviously, we're not advising you, because you need your mental health practitioner to advise you specifically to your
Right,
situation. These are general principles. What were you
right.
going to say, sis?
I was gonna say, I agree with everything you said. It's absolutely good stuff. I have to say that this takes so much maturity, especially in the moment that you are feeling the anger, the rage, the hurt feelings, whatever the case may be. It takes all the maturity that God has bestowed upon man to be, but this is what, and this is what, I mean, marriage is a blessing in so many ways, but you learn these to be able to do these things by being connected with God, and during these times of conflict you grow so much as a person, right? So those principles that Dr. White gave are excellent, but it takes you have to be intentional about, okay, this is what I want to do. This is how I want together as a couple, how I want to communicate to my spouse when we are in conflict, or these are the principles we want to put in place so that we can, resolve it in a more peaceful way. What I like to tell couples as well is when the other person is talking, like when you were saying, like, this is what I hear you say, is like when the other person, or when the other person is sharing their heart, you want to enter in their heart, into their space, and listen to them, not preparing your rebuttal, because that's what we do so many times. Our spouse is talking and we're preparing the rebuttal, like we're the defense attorney or the prosecutor or whatever. Like we just can't wait to examine, not cross examine, I'm sorry, but to just say, our side of the story basically, and how we feel. Don't do that. And then after you listen to them and let them know what you hear them saying, and they can correct you if you're wrong, then you get to say how you're feeling and what your thoughts are about it. And
Right.
all of that takes a lot of maturity.
We're taking some time with this question because it really gets to the heart of the matter. So I really hope this helps your friend, Amra. But the other piece to unveil it is just what we're talking about is the concept of tracking. Like, it
Mhm.
is so often the conflicts and the arguments stem from a misunderstanding. And that's why it can be so cool to pause and be like, you know what are you hearing me say? And then here's what I'm hearing you say, and making sure you're actually
Mhm.
both arguing about the same things. Because people can
Right.
notoriously be arguing about two different things and it not make sense. And I want you to hear this word. This is a key word in marriage. It's called attuning.
Yes.
Attuning. Like if you've ever gone to an orchestra, early,
Mm. Mhm.
you'll hear them tuning the instruments, and it's actually a
Right.
horrible sound. It's a
I
horrible
know.
sound. It's like
Yes.
you're just like, "This is why I don't like coming early," right? I'm kidding.
Right.
And then you see the conductor, start the whatever, the rendition, what have you, and it's so beautiful. It's symphonic,
Mhm.
because they are attuned. They are attuned. And that's what we have to do in relationships is we have to attune. So I hope that
Right.
was helpful to you, Amra. Um,
I think it was, and I know there's another question that was up here first, but I feel like this goes right along with this. So if we could put this question in front of that other one.
how do you
Uh-oh.
is
Okay.
it that is that it?
Okay. It wasn't. It was okay, someone was saying how you're trying to take a break to walk away, but they won't let you, basically.
Where is that? Let me see.
Where is that? I did see it. Where'd it go? I don't know, Amra, can you find it?
Well,
It was
well, well,
it was right
that's the
here.
whole
Okay,
that's
there
the
it is.
whole what if you're trying to take time out and the other won't let you?
Yes.
So Joanne, a lot of times what'll happen is we're focused on our feeling. We're focused on our feeling, and we're just telling that significant other, I need time away. I need
Mhm.
time away. Now,
I think
this is
if they're not respecting that though, that's what I
right.
think I hear her saying.
Right. But
Yep.
I'm saying the thing about a relationship is if I just start focusing on how I'm feeling, and
Mhm.
I'm not attuning to the spouse and saying, you know
Okay.
what, they're trying to share something with me. It can be devastating for a person to be trying
Mhm.
to share something with you and you're just saying, I need to step away. That's
Right.
the reason I shared the principle the way that I did. Before you talk about going away, you're letting that person know I value you. I love what you're saying to me. It means the world to me that you are communicating to me.
Mhm.
I just want to put myself in a space where I can hear you because what you're
Right.
saying is important and you're important.
Mhm.
So it's more unlikely that the person is going to receive that as you dismissing them. I tell you what they
Right.
will experience is you dismissing them. You know what? I can't talk to you right now. I can't hear you right now.
I
That's
was
going to
just gonna
escalate.
say, it's the way you say it, like, the way you're saying it right now, Dr. White, is perfect. They need to take a deep breath because before they say it, because they're not in the calm state of mind that you're in. But the way you're saying it right now is perfect. But the way you say it and even your body language, so sometimes we can say things, but our body language is also communicating. So your body language is allowing the other person to know, are you being authentic or
Are you being
or you're not.
dismissive? Are you being
Exactly. So
dismissive?
all
Like
that's important.
just all you have to do is put yourself in that person's place and think about you're trying to share your heart and the person is telling you basically go stuff it. Like
Yeah.
that wouldn't evoke the response of yeah, you go take all the time that you need. No, it's gonna take evoke the response of rejection. And when people feel
Mhm.
rejected, it's gonna escalate.
Right.
All right.
Absolutely.
So
There
so
was a
so
question. I think it was
yeah,
Crystal's too.
yeah.
Sorry that we bumped you, Crystal. Just okay.
How do you
How
talk
do you
with your
talk?
teenagers about unhealthy relationships? So
Ah,
I recently got this cool tip about say, how do you sell effectively? You know how you sell effectively? Questions.
questions.
Questions. Um,
Questions.
a lot of times we're setting ourselves up to talk to a teenager when in fact we should be questioning the teenager. Your goal is to kind of get them talking.
Mhm.
Your
True.
goal is to get on their cutting edge. So, hey,
Mhm.
what's on your mind? Let's do an activity that they care about. Let's spend some time together and let me hear what's on your mind. Guess what you're going to hear? Some things you don't really want to hear.
Mhm. True.
You daddy, I like this boy, or this kind of this is not what I want to hear, this is not
Right.
what I want to
Well,
hear.
That's
You
what
know?
that well, yes. Well, you're because
Yeah,
you have your daughter, and so you're coming from that perspective. No, I hear you.
yeah.
I don't
But
really have a clinical answer for this, except when what you said is correct. And after you have that initial kind of um, like it's conversation where you're trying to like just okay, well, tell me about this young man, or tell me why you like him, or tell me about the relationship. Can I meet him or her, or whoever you're talking to. And then after that, and if they're open, that's great. If you have a relationship where you all communicate pretty well with your teenager, and they're open. Not all teenagers, are that open, and they'll, just close off or just say like, okay, mom or dad, don't worry about it. I don't want to say they would say it's none of your business, but in their mind, they probably think like it's none of your business, or, I don't know. I mean, the teenagers, they think all types of things. And so I have, just transparency here, talking from a personal level of raising mainly girls, our one son, but mainly girls, is that after you've had that conversation, or maybe even express some of your concerns because you've met this young man or young woman, and some red flags that you see, after that you can't continue to harp and harp and harp on it. You have to pray. And that's not a cliche. That actually works. I don't know. Hopefully well, I won't tell you which daughter, but I've actually prayed some people out of their lives. So let's just leave it at that. And it's like I prayed, but God did the
no work.
miracle and worked
No
power.
work.
Like when God answered the prayer, I was like, I'd been praying for months, but then I was so shocked because he did it in it was so amazing how he did it. And like, yeah, yeah. Well, I won't say anything else. I'm saying too much
No,
now, but
that's keeping it as real as possible.
yeah, that was
Um,
real. Yeah.
Given the limitation in time, we're gonna shift. Danny's asking a question that I think will help the audience quite a bit. Danny Blanco. What does it mean for a woman to submit to her husband? Does it mean that she has no say? How would you explain it to today's modern feminists? And this question caught me off guard when it was asked. Um, it's interesting because one of the questions Danny said is, does it mean that she has no say? Now, why would you
Abs-
marry a person? Why would you marry a person that you don't want to have any say?
right.
Like, that would kind of defeat the person. But here's how I would help this person, Danny. Now, sis, do you want to take the first stab at this, or you want me to take the first stab at this?
Well, I'll say this since you gave me
Yeah,
the
go for it.
invitation. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah,
But,
you're welcome.
no, yeah. So when you're talking about being, or how, I guess okay, being submissive to your husband, if we're going from a biblical principle, the Bible says that we should be submissive to our husbands, and our husbands should they should treat their wives as God treats the church. And so when you look at it with that perspective, like how does God treat the church, which is, how loving and kind and thoughtful and patient and caring and long suffering is he with his church? Extremely. And so when a man is treating his wife under those biblical characteristics of how God treats his church or his people, and then when we feel like, how do we react to God when we feel that? When God is so loving and long suffering, extends grace to us, and just treats us so well, it's
Happily
easy.
submit.
Yeah, we happily say, okay, God, whatever you want, because you're just such an amazing God. Like we serve you, we worship you because you're amazing and you love us. And so love your wife the way Jesus and God loves the church, and she will kindly submit
Submit. Yeah.
and work together, really. But go ahead.
I think the way I've heard that said, Sister Tante, is there's a way to behave that will
Mhm.
command respect or submission or whatever. You understand?
Mhm.
Not
Yeah.
not demand, will command.
Right.
There's a way
Right.
to be so loving, so defensive, so attentive to the needs of, let's say, your wife, that it would naturally elicit from her submission. But
Mhm.
I have an even better response, honestly. I think the way you're supposed to think about your family is as a family firm, as a family
Mhm.
firm. And I think that firm should have goals. Like there's somewhere that you're trying to get to. I think the entire family should submit to the goals of the family firm.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I see it. I think
Mm-hmm.
you guys should be so clear on your
Oh
goals and
yeah.
what it is that you're getting to, and everybody in the family does whatever they need to move the agenda of the family along.
Family goal. Yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
abandoned this idea of I'm only doing this and my wife is only doing that a
Mm-hmm.
long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
And we sit down and we figure out how can we help each other.
Right.
We will do
That's what
what
it's really about. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we will do whatever possible to help each other move the agenda of the family along. That's the priority. So
Marriage is a team sport.
it's a team
It's
sport,
a
and
team sport.
you literally become one. So what
Mm-hmm.
is there? Yeah, it's no. I need you to submit to the goals that we've set. That's what we submit to. So that's how I
Mm-hmm.
would answer that question. All
Okay.
right.
What are
What are
3 steps of go ahead. I'm reading it too.
Yeah.
For a successful marriage. A lot of my Adventist friends are getting divorced after years of marriage. I'm so shocked. I thought marriage should get better with age. Um, yeah, unfortunately, divorce in the world and divorce in the church has just a little higher divorce rate than divorce in the world, and so um, there's really not that much difference, unfortunately. Um, but you're asking for 3 steps. I mean, there's many steps, but
Well,
Go ahead.
so first and foremost, with regard to that statistic, I think we would all agree that Christian families get more demonic attention.
Yes,
So
you said
that
that before.
Yeah,
Yes.
so that if they're sort of like evening
And
out in
pastors
terms
get
of the
even more
rate,
than that.
that would then highlight how effective the
It's
Christian
true.
principles are, that it's just kind of, just a little, difference given how much attention they are getting,
Right.
how committed the devil is to making it seem as if Christian principles aren't long lasting and enduring.
Right.
Um,
As far as steps go, I mean, we covered as far as how to resolve conflict, we covered that a couple of questions ago. I mean, that's one thing, one way I should say, that it can help a marriage last longer, and how to solve conflict. Number two, since we're just doing 3 steps, and since we're speaking pretty much primarily to a Christian audience, I believe this evening, praying together is, um, I think, taken daily is taken for granted, but it is something that can keep you and your spouse emotionally connected. It is a very intimate thing to pray together, to bring your burdens to the Lord together. That is one way that I believe that keeps any marriage together. But if you're not a Christian, okay, you're not going to do that. But you're talking about Christian couples, so praying together. The third is what we're talking community. Like, have a culture of appreciation within your
ouch,
marriage. So a
ouch.
culture of appreciation is let your spouse know what you appreciate about them on a daily basis. So it could be the smallest things, but like, don't just think what you appreciate about them, but let it actually come out of your mouth and let them know, hey, I really appreciate this about you. And it could be the smallest thing, but do that daily. So basically, having a culture of appreciation within the marriage. Those are my 3 steps, just right off the cuff. But go ahead.
I'm so glad you didn't steal my steps, but you did a little bit, but you didn't steal my skills. But I'm coming back. Here's what I got for you. So number one, learn relevant skills. Learn relevant skills. If you took me on a basketball court right now, I'd probably be shooting some air balls. I would be winded. It would be an ugly sight. You would
Oh
be like,
no.
go back to work, doctor. Go back to work, because you don't belong here. Okay. And
Oh.
why? Because I haven't worked on my skills. I haven't worked on it.
Right.
Well, it's funny though that we want to bring ourselves to the major leagues of marriage, and we're not committed at all to building skills that would
Mhm.
help sustain your relationship. So invest in building skills. Now, for some, that's going to mean maybe therapy. For others, it might mean workshops. But build the skills that are relevant to a thriving marriage, not just
Mhm.
one that's just, but thriving. My
Mhm.
number two would be build a friendship.
Yes.
Build a friendship. It's hard for a friendship to survive children. You know, there's this statistic that says with the birth of each child, there's like a 25% reduction in the quality of the marriage.
Oh, wow.
In the quality, in the quality.
We have
I'm
we have
joking,
4. We have 4. We would
but
that take us down to
you have no quality. You're down to zero. No, I'm
that's what I'm
joking.
about to say, we'd be down to 0.
I'm totally joking, but I'm totally joking with that statistic. Don't even ask me where you find it. But the reality is, as a marriage goes through its twists and turns, married couples can lose sight of each other,
Oh, yes.
and and
And
it's
you lose the connection.
you
You
can lose
grow
a
apart.
connection.
Mhm.
Absolutely, absolutely. So work on building that friendship. Give priority. See one another, and then my third thing is prioritize each other, prioritize
Mhm.
each other's needs. I think it like we talked about this before. We talked about real giving. And
Yes.
Sister Tanta, you're the one that really expounded that. Real
Mhm.
giving, not
Mhm.
giving what you want.
But
If
what
he
they want.
asked you, if he asked you for the black sweater, you got to give him the black sweater. And you know what the black sweater means in the context of your relationship. I mean,
Right.
obviously, you're making sure everything is congruent with your beliefs and all that kind of stuff. That's not what but I mean appropriate things. If he's asked
Mhm.
you for this, don't ask him to legitimize why he wants that. Don't turn around and say, no, you don't want that. I'm going to give you a white sweater.
Right.
Don't do that. Don't do that. Real giving. Prioritize each other. You say, well, um, for some reason, maybe I can't access that sweater. Well, no, put yourself in the position to access the sweater. That's part of
Mhm.
prioritizing the person's needs. This is for
Mhm.
men. Prioritize what she's asking you for, and for women, prioritize what she's asking you for.
Mhm.
And so the sister who mentioned that these relationships are just falling apart, a lot of times it's lack of skills,
Right.
lack of building a friendship, and then ignoring what people have professed that they need. You just ignore it.
Mhm.
Well, and then we marvel at why the relationship falls apart.
Mhm. Mhm. And yeah, I mean, there's so much to say. I mean, that's actually a whole program within itself. But I think also when couples realize, well, first of all, you don't have to go to marriage counseling because things are so bad. It's just like with your car. If you don't go and get the oil changed or get a tune up, it's going to fall apart. So, I mean, going to even seek counsel from a marriage and family therapist on how to, your marriage doesn't have to be horrible. It could be, there's many good elements in the marriage, but you're just wanting to spice it up, or to make sure that you're doing is all that you can do to keep your connection to one another. And then the other side of that is that if you realize that things are not going quite the right way, that there are problems, get go to someone, a mental health professional, a marriage and family therapist, to start counseling to deal with it right away. Don't let so much time go that it gets worse and worse and worse and worse. It's harder to fix. And at that
Absolutely.
time, it's just easy to say, okay, let's get a divorce because there's too much resentment, or there's so much bitterness, and I'm having such a difficult time forgiving. Both spouses are having a difficult time forgiving one another. So,
Yeah,
um,
that's why I mentioned building skills. Building
mhm,
skills occurs in a number of contexts. Building skills occurs in sometimes reading books. It occurs in workshops. It occurs in
yeah,
sometimes therapy.
yes.
Um, but it's hey, how do I want to perform? And then it behooves me to
Mhm.
take on the responsibility of identifying what is the setting that will equip me with the skills to get this desired outcome. We're talking about something where 50% of your wealth can be reduced. Okay. Is that
Right.
worth attending to? You're talking about emotional scarring on an amazing level. Okay.
Mhm.
Is that worth preventing? Um, I got this great question from Crystal Cox. Thank you for the question. Listen to this. How do you prioritize each other's needs when you don't have someone to watch the toddler? Well, here's what's
Mm.
interesting. Do you know that prioritizing each other's needs is prioritizing the toddler? When
Mm.
you maintain a vibrant marital relationship, that's one of the most important things you can give to that toddler. That
Mhm.
is so critical.
Mhm.
So yeah, we struggled with that when we moved to California, and we had our toddler, and we wanted to, be able to maintain our relationship, and at the same time, who do you trust with your toddler?
Right.
And so the idea is, this is the reason God gave us a brain, so that
Right.
we can devote creativity and come up with
I
ideas.
was just gonna say
I'm gonna let
creativity.
you finish it. Yeah, go
Well, no, I
for
was
it.
just gonna say creativity because it's so, this is a difficult stage, for any marriage when you have young children, because you can't just, run off to you can't be spontaneous and just run off to a date night without making sure you have proper care, and a lot of times you don't have proper care. So being creative, like doing something special after you put the toddler to bed, and then creating your own whatever space that you guys would like to do, but you have to be creative during those years. I had a couple want to say, well, we can't do date nights because the kids they're home in the evening, and so they both actually worked from home, and so they decided they would have a date morning before they started work. They would do something special together after the kids were off to school, and they could do something together, and then they would start their work day. I mean, they were just being creative because you have to, but it's
Y-
actually, and like what you said, it's beneficial to the children to put your marriage first, because when you put the kids first, it's going to impact the marriage in a bad way, in a
But yeah,
negative way.
but Sister Tanta, you're talking about
Mhm,
commitment. You're talking about
mhm,
commitment. You know,
mhm.
so often we show up to different places and we're late, and we say, "Hey, why were you late?" "Oh, well, it was the traffic." You live in Southern California. you you know the traffic situation.
Right.
And yet, if your kid was graduating valedictorian, it doesn't even matter if they were graduating valedictorian. If they were just graduating, you'll be on time for their graduation. So what's the difference?
Mhm.
Commitment. We have to come up with the creativity to make it happen.
Right.
How do you handle gracefully when your spouse forgets important things, especially things you've previously agreed on? Diana, thank you for that question.
Yeah, and you
It,
use the right word, gracefully,
yeah, gracefully,
because we
gracefully.
wanna get upset and annoyed. You take
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'll
Yeah.
let you take the
Well,
I'll
well,
take a shot at it.
yeah, Diana. I mean, this is a vulnerable question, because like when they forget, what do we feel? We feel rejected. We feel like, hey,
Mhm.
you obviously are not prioritizing me. Perhaps I'm not important to you. Is the thinking that one can start to, the train of thought that one can start to entertain.
Mhm.
And you said, how would you deal with it gracefully? Well, one thing you can do is, maybe you can remember if you've had a shortcoming,
Right,
um,
exactly.
and it didn't come from a place of hate, or just neglect, or what have you. It was just a sincere, you know what, I forgot.
Mhm.
Maybe things were busy. Uh, Hopefully you weren't sending a subconscious message. um,
Mhm.
but the idea is to come from that space of, how would you want to be treated when you forget?
Right.
And hopefully you would want to be treated with grace.
Mhm.
And so, coming from that place, you would think about, um, returning. You would want to respond to the person in that way. Now, that said, that doesn't mean a conversation cannot be had. It doesn't mean that you can't have a solution focused conversation about, honey, I feel like there's a possibility we may not be prioritizing each other. Okay.
Right.
It's not attacking. It's not hey, how do we make sure we avoid the pitfalls that others have made in, kind of letting the relationship lose its spot in priority? And you have a frank conversation about that. What are your
Right.
thoughts?
Well, I like the way what you said about extending grace, because just rereading the question, like maybe your spouse, like even though you guys spoke about it and it was very important, they sincerely forgot, right? So that's where you extend the grace, but you could extend the grace even, I mean, that's what I'm gathering from that question, is that you talked about it, you were expecting it, and they forgot. And so instead of getting annoyed with them, you can definitely have that conversation that Dr. White just said that, needs to be had. Like maybe even if they do this on a normal basis, like this happens often, like this just happens every once in a while, you probably wouldn't get that annoyed. But if it happens often, then maybe encouraging them to say, hey, maybe, writing things down that we talk about, that's so very important. If it's a time or a date, maybe put it in your calendar. I don't know. I don't know what the situation is, but definitely just having that conversation that can, um, just better your spouse, and to help them to remember, and just, let them know how, you feel when they forget something that's so very important. And if they're sincere and want to make you happy, they will do their very best to try to do better.
Right, right. But if you're seeing this as a harbinger of bigger things to come, and you need that deeper conversation, you have that deeper conversation, and sometimes you need some support in having that deeper conversation. But the
Right.
idea is to be preemptive and not to just ignore it. Janet Fairclough, I hope I pronounced that correct. Thank you for this question. Is separating from a marriage helps or makes it worse? So these are the questions that make us qualify. We're not your mental health practitioners. Well, because there's a certain level of specificity of
Mhm.
information that is needed in order to give this question justice. For example, if there's
Right.
violence,
Definitely separate.
scripture is very pro-life. Scripture is definitely pro-life
I
and
like
very
that.
respectful of your safety,
Right.
so that scripture would say get yourself to safety. Now I don't know even what that means in terms of getting yourself to safety, but it's very
Right.
pro-life. And as
Mhm.
a general rule, as a human, our safety is paramount. Our safety is
Mhm.
paramount, and so we need to take those steps. But were that not into the question, then the question changes to a whole other tenor. So
Mhm.
it all depends on what the dynamics are, and this is why sometimes it's so critical to have a specialist who's really focused on the details specific to your particular issue. What
Right.
were you
Who
going to
know
say,
who
Sue?
Well, I was gonna say I agree with you, and, a mental health professional who knows your story, and can make that, decision, or you can make that decision along with them. I had a couple once who actually they called for counseling, right after, a few days after they separated. And when the separation was, they weren't angry or hate each other, but they just felt like, okay, we need to, actually the wife felt like she needed to separate, and the husband was, very distraught, and, didn't want her to go, but they were respectful and treated each other, with kindness. And I say all this to say that in the separation, and that they called for counseling. So not separation without any communication, or without working on yourself or working on the marriage, I would say that that tends to probably make the situation worse. But just as an example that this couple did, they actually separated and got counseling and grew closer together while they were separated, and actually wanted and desired to spend more time, with each other, as they were learning about the issues and the things that, caused them. They were learning the why to the issues that caused them to want to be separated, and they worked on that, and they eventually got back together. So it could go either way.
Well, that it's awesome that you were able to kind of provide them that guidance to help
Yeah.
them restore their love for each other.
Yes,
Um,
yes. We can maybe take one more question. We are about 2 minutes, and we're all out of time, but we can take one if there is another question. There, if there's not, that's okay too.
hmm, marriage is a good way to practice selflessness. Well
Yeah,
said, Clint.
well said. We might end with that.
Yeah, we just very well might end with that.
Yes.
Clint got the last word. Yeah, I think it's interesting how it we can mistakenly view marriage as a setting to extract,
Right.
rather than recognizing that it's actually a context to provide. It's give and take. I mean, you
Right.
do some taking, but you better do some giving as well. And
Right.
that's the system of this earth: give and take.
Yes.
The only thing that takes and takes and takes is the Dead Sea, and it's dead.
Right. Right. I know
Yeah.
this was a question up there, but I didn't quite understand it, so I didn't go there, but maybe you want to take a stab at
Yeah,
it.
isn't arranged marriage the best way for single parents? I don't know what that means as far as like
Okay.
I'm sorry, Fanika.
We're not sure.
Isn't
Yeah, Fanika.
arranged marriage the best way for single parents? I don't know. I don't know what you mean by that. My sister from South Africa. We're just so happy that you're here with us, though, and
Yes.
we know it's super early where you are. So come back next time, and if you can refashion that question, we'd love to give a stab at it.
Yeah. Yes, we would. But we just want to thank everyone for joining us this evening. Please share this episode of Mental Health Mondays. Please put it on your social media. Tell your friends, your coworkers, family. Let them know that hey, we cover mental health issues, but we've been talking about marriage, and so maybe they will receive. Hopefully, they will receive a blessing by listening to some of our answers to some of your questions. But we just want to thank you again, and we invite you to tune in next week as we'll be back covering another mental health topic. And just to talk about the other things that we have going on here at Living Managed Church tomorrow evening is True Health Tuesday. So if you're signed up, and maybe we can put that on the screen, if you're signed up to get the text alerts, you will get alerted to what time that is. And here it is. You just text LMOC 84576. So if you're not signed up, do that. So you'll always get a reminder when Mental Health Mondays is on, True Health Tuesdays. If you're interested in attending a prayer service where we just pray and give testimonies, then you can get reminded of that as well. And then, of course, on Saturdays, Sabbath, we have church. And so you can get reminded of that as well. And you are invited to all of those that I mentioned. But
Shout out to Brother Terry on that awesome sermon that he delivered this last Sabbath. Appreciate you,
amen.
brother.
Amen. Yeah,
Absolutely.
amen. Okay. Yes. Yes. So we look forward to seeing you guys next week and just stay blessed. God bless you.
Bye
Thank
bye,
you.
sis. All the
Bye
best.
bye. Bye bye.